Hi pals, it's me, Artie, they them pronouns only. When I'm recording this, so far the only episodes that have aired for Married at First Sight in the UK is literally the first week. We haven't seen all of the couples yet. Barely anything has happened, basically. We've had six couples weddings, and then I think 4 of them have gone on honeymoons. That's all we've seen so far when I'm recording this. After that week, I already wanted to kind of have a conversation a bit about representation in our UK media. And my main focus is going to be obviously on Married at First Sight UK. I have only seen the last couple of seasons and I'm watching this current season. I haven't seen any of the previous Married at First Sights when it was originally airing before they changed a few things. But I wanted to talk about representation in Married at First Sight. It's definitely something I've discussed before in bits and pieces here and there. I've now done, I think, 2 Married at First Sight videos, but I don't know if I did 2 on each of the UK ones or not. I might have done, I can't remember. And then I also did one on the Married at First Sight Australia, the last one that aired, as well as I wrote a blog post talking about that last Married at First Sight Australia and their representation and what they choose to keep and not keep in the final edits around chronic illness. In my opinion, I find the UK Married at First Sight is a little bit better for representation. There is a lot more diversity in the participants that they choose to have on the show, pretty much. I find that the UK Married at First Sight tends to have more body diversity. We have a variation of different heights, like men and women being tall and short, different weight sizes, shapes. We definitely have more plus size women and fat people, fat men on Married at First Sight UK, then seems to be at least on the Australian one. We also have, like, from what I've noticed, we have a lot more visibly tattooed people as well on the UK one, although I do think the last season of MAFS did have some more like visibly tattooed people for once. Yeah, the last season of the UK MAFS we had 2 very heavily tattooed people. This MAFS season we have at least 1 that I've seen, and then generally just more participants have more visible tattoos all over them. Like obviously we have Jay has a half sleeve. I'll get to that a bit more later. Her husband has also got some visible tattoos around his like face. Last season's MAFS, there were quite a few other people. I'll add photos because I really can't be asked to try and name everybody. I would also say racially, we have more black people in the UK Married at First Sight versus the Australian one, but the Australian one does seem to have more Asian representation. I would really like to see more effort from both shows in that regard. The UK one as well has more queer people on it, more people who are not, like, their queerness is not cut out in the final edit. Like poor Lyndall's bisexuality was cut out of the entire Australian season and she was paired with a man, so if you didn't follow her after that season you would have never have known. Whereas, you know, in the UK one we have had queer couples every season. We obviously had a queer couple 2 seasons ago. We had gay men and gay women. Oh my god, my brain was like, what are women? And also, like, I know there's a lot of issues and controversy around Thomas, and whilst I no longer follow him, unfortunately, he was one of the more radical around the sort of talking about his sexual attractions and romantic attractions and not being so bioessentialist. He very much stated on his Instagram that, you know, he dates trans people as long as he thinks you're hot. That's, like, you know, all that really matters. It doesn't matter what technically is going on biologically. And I think he may have stated that he's dated women before. I don't really remember. This was like a while back. And then, yeah, this season we've got a queer couple that I will go into a bit more in a moment. We also tend to have a bit more freedom for varied gender presentation. Again, Thomas was a good example of someone who appears to be a man but had fun experimenting with his style, fashion and gender presentation on the show. I also feel like, I always forget her fucking name. I'm gonna have to look up what her name is. Yeah, and Zoe is a more mask, butch presenting queer woman. There's probably some other examples, but I can't fully think about everyone right now. We've also had a selection of sex workers on. Last season we had PJ, who was currently a stripper at that point in time. And that's the words that he's used. Yeah, he basically did like a Magic Mike kind of show. And there's someone on this season as well. This season's UK MAFS seems to have gone a little bit more back to its roots of normal people versus the influencer type person. Of course, there's always like a handful of people in most of these shows who have been on other reality TV shows. I think this season, Nathaniel was on Geordie Shore, possibly something else, don't remember, as well as Peggy. She was on another, I think she was on another dating show, I don't remember which one that was. And then I think from a couple of years ago, Morag and Nikita are also both from different reality TV shows. I'm sure there's some people from last year as well, but yeah, like the people are starting to look less influencery, and are a little bit more normal person vibes. And then when it comes to disability stuff, it is a little bit less clear. I don't really remember anybody in the last few seasons with disabilities except from last year's Jenna, who was one of the lesbians or queer people. I don't remember who. I think they were both lesbians. I haven't rewatched that season to be definitely sure, but I'm pretty sure they were both lesbians. But Jenna has alopecia, and she went into that a little bit in that season last year. Whereas, yeah, as I said, I wrote a whole blog post talking about the chronic illness representation in this most recent Married at First Sight Australia, if you want to read that. And I go into detail about how much was talked about each of them and shown about each of them, and what my thoughts are on why not a lot was shown necessarily from each thing. But generally, for a while, this video will be spoiler safe. I did unfortunately find a spoiler by accident when I was trying to find some photos for this video to use in editing. So I'm a bit pissed, but that does mean I've got an extra thing I want to talk about after the non-spoilery things. So I will let you know once I go into spoilers. But as long as you are up to date, these are not spoilers. This is literally just the first week of episodes and what's been shown on those episodes. So first of all, we have Jay, who is our, so far, our disabled contestant of this season. She was born with a limb difference. She only has, I think, to about here of her arm, and she was just born that way. She has, that's why I kind of laughed when I said she has a half sleeve of tattoos. It's because her arm finishes here. So she has a tattooed sort of sleeve down her arm, which I think is really cool. It's a very common way for a lot of disabled people to reclaim their bodies. She has some good and bad things to say about disability stuff. So I will try to explain a bit more those parts. Some of the things I like is that she is very much, not trying to hide that she's disabled. She used to have a prosthetic, but always found it was quite uncomfortable, annoying, got in the way. So she just prefers to live her life without a prosthetic attached to her arm. But it has led to her being quite insecure about this aspect when it comes to dating people. It comes up quite a lot in the couple of episodes that she is basically terrified that whoever she's paired with will see her arm and be like, nah, I'm out, see you later. Or like they're gonna pretend they like her to continue being on the show to get clout and stuff like that. She's really, really scared of being rejected, specifically because of her arm, but also like generally a little bit of like, she doesn't feel like she's attractive enough. She was paired with Luke. So the thing is, I think he's great. I think they're a really great pair. I'm really excited, hopefully, that they will continue going as well as they have been going. But basically, yeah, they were paired together. He noticed her arm, didn't bother him at all. Wonderful, lovely. I enjoy that representation. Makes people, like, you know, it gives someone to, like, something to think about, because we see a lot of, like, oh, you're disabled, I don't want to be with you, or like, I can't deal with this because you're disabled, blah blah. It's nice to have more of a positive reinforcement around, actually, you being disabled does not affect me at all. I think you're hot, I'm excited to get to know you, and that is then a good way of making people question their negative points of view on dating disabled people. And it is then disclosed a bit later that his dad is disabled. It doesn't really explain any further what the nature of his disability is, but something I've noticed on this show is they really like pairing people based on some random aspects of like their background. So I was genuinely very unsurprised when he disclosed that his dad's disabled. I was like, of course they've paired the child of a disabled person with a disabled person on the show. This happens quite a lot. There's a few other things that my brain's just like, of course they did that. Of course. I forgot to say, but also I like the fact that both Jay and Luke use the word disabled on the show. It's something I mentioned back in my America's Next Top Model video, but actually having people claiming the term disabled or using the term disabled for other people is just like so rare. So I'm glad that they both did that. Some of the iffier things that Jay and her sister have sort of said about disability, and specifically Jay's disability, is like Jay's sister is the one who seems to bring it up a lot, but I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. It's probably producers and editing that's really what makes it look like this. From generally my experience of watching these shows, both the UK and Australian ones, the producers do seem to have a leading role in directing the narrative and feeding information to people and suggesting they do certain things. And it is annoying, to be honest, as a viewer, because it really makes a lot of people look really bad. So Jay's sister doesn't look great to me, to be honest. The way she talks about Jay's disability to Luke, kind of as if, you know, the whole like burdensome vibe comes up. I don't remember exact wordings, but I just was not a huge fan of how they were wording that. The conversation generally is lacking the kind of disability politics that would be really great to actually get out there in front of an audience. Again, these are just people. They're supposedly just on here looking for love, you know, so I understand that this may not be what their life circles around, like the political side of those things. She may be living a relatively non-disabled life besides some of the very obvious direct impacts, like not being able to use two hands for certain things when you do need two hands. There's a few things that have been said that were just a bit like, okay, could have done without that, but anyway, like I said, I think both of them are really nice, are really cute together. I really hope the best for them too, and I hope it continues onwards. And a big part of the disability representation in MAFS tends to lean towards people who are basically not disabled. Right, so I'm gonna be very, very clear in a disclaimer here. I am not saying any of these people are not disabled or not chronically ill or sick or anything like that. They very much are. But it's just interesting the kinds of disabled people and kinds of chronically ill people they pick for Married at First Sight, and who gets to talk about it. So obviously Jay is going to be getting to talk about her disabilities a lot, because so far we have not seen any other disabled people come up on this season. And she has said herself it basically doesn't impact a whole lot of her life in general. but it mainly impacts her dating and then certain just practical aspects of it. And then when it came to Married at First Sight Australia, the last season, the person who got the most spotlight was Lyndall, and that's my suspicions are it's because she is on this reasonably new miracle drug that basically makes her cystic fibrosis so much more manageable and extends her life to a more average life expectancy versus the CF kind of life expectancy, which is quite short. So her CF no longer affects her in the same kinds of ways that it used to. And this is where I say that these are the palatable kinds of disabled representation put on TV for a non-disabled audience. So yeah, once again, I'm not arguing their experiences as disabled or sick people. I'm not saying their life hasn't been horrifically impacted in other ways, that they haven't faced ableism or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's very interesting, the kinds of people, the kinds of disabilities that are shown on Married at First Sight so far. So now we have the queer couple that I want to talk about for this season. So we have Nathaniel, who is a pansexual black man. He is paired with Ella, who is a white trans woman. So this is, for one, our first ever self-ID'd non-monosexual participant. So Nathaniel is the first person we've had on this show who part of his story is specifically the fact that he is pansexual. We also, I don't think we have had any queer people of colour on the UK MAFS before either. So that is another first, that he is a black queer man, as well as the fact that he is specifically multi-gender attracted. I was very excited, and I won't lie, I immediately clocked him. Watching the first episode and seeing him enter the bachelor party, I messaged my friend saying, "Oh, the one with the dangly earrings, hot." Of course the one with the dangly earrings, gay. Artie, please. I liked a lot of what he was saying on the show. He says on the wedding day to Ella that, you know, when Ella comes out to him as being trans, he was like, well, I'm pansexual, so it's not down to your body, it's how you make me feel, it's how we connect together, it's all about what's inside rather than necessarily what's outside. Yeah, I think generally we are overall lacking representation of queer people of colour, but specifically queer men of colour, and especially multi-gender attracted men of colour. So yeah, like I was very excited to see somebody who is not usually represented on TV very much. That's kind of why I've picked these three anyways, because I don't feel like these contestants are usually the kinds of people that get spotlight in most shows. It was very funny actually, because at the bachelor party, I remember they were asking, oh, so what are you hoping to get in a wife? And he was like, wife? And he explained that he's dated men and women. But like, as soon as I knew that he was not strictly gay or straight, and I knew that this other participant was trans, I knew they would be paired together. Like, it's one of those things that happens quite a lot, that it seems like the bioessentialist stuff in like queer identities makes a lot of non-queer people and non-trans people struggle to understand that they could have paired Ella, the trans woman, with a straight man because she is a woman. But they obviously would not do that. It's just kind of like, it just kind of seems to be a trope now that, of course, the multi-gender attracted cis person is going to date the monosexual trans person. So on to Ella. Again, I feel like it's nice to see some trans representation on TV, although she is a pretty stereotypical, not necessarily stereotypical, but like she really does embody the beauty standards in the UK. She is tall, but not too tall, slim, blonde, and she's had facial feminization surgeries. She's had her boob job. I don't know if she's had any other surgeries done, but like, you know, she has had a lot of her transition already. She does fit a lot of the beauty standards in the UK or generally in the West. Again, nothing wrong with that. She's still trans. That doesn't change her experience of being trans. She also had family saying some weird things about being trans, and it's another kind of trope that I really hate hearing a lot. So yeah, they kind of talk about how, it's hard for you to understand, Ella, that actually we as your family were losing the person we knew. And like, me and my mum find this particular argument very frustrating because you have not lost that person. They are still there. They just get to be who they really feel like they are. But besides that, you can see her family are very loving and supportive. And that is something I feel like is also rarely represented on TV. A lot of trans people on telly do not have supportive families, specifically because they are trans. So it's nice to see that she has siblings who are supportive of her, parents who are supportive of her, and like that they are so happy and proud of her and pleased with what's going on, that they are moved to tears. Although it was a rocky road for them when she did come out, and their relationships weren't that like easy and swift. The fact that they are all in a good place now is rarely ever seen on TV. Okay, quick stretch break. I'll do a quick conclusion on this before I go into the spoilery parts. So yeah, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because seeing marginalised people in reality TV is rare. Like, a lot of the cast for this season is still white, cis, straight, and able-bodied. Seeing this very real representation of real people living in these marginalised identities is a pretty big step forward, especially in the UK. We have a lot of issues these days. We have been having these issues for quite a while, but the transphobia in the UK is horrendous. The ableism in the UK is horrendous. And I can't speak on this from personal experience, but from what bi men of colour I know, as well as reading Vineet Mehta's book Bisexual Men Exist, there is obviously as well a huge amount of problems with existing as a multigender attracted person who is also black or a person of colour in the UK. So having these three very different kinds of representation of real people on our TV screens is important, especially with how shitty things have been in the UK for a lot of us as normal people, as in like people who aren't celebrity or whatever. And whilst I have a lot of problems with how a lot of this has been put together by Married at First Sight themselves, and whilst, you know, I have issues with certain things that each of these contestants have said / people they know have said on the show about this, you know, particular thing, I still think it's important that they are on the TV. Like I said in my Skins Queer video, all representation is important, including representation that is not so well politically read, if you understand what I mean by that. Because you shouldn't have to be an activist, you shouldn't have to be academic, you shouldn't have to be you shouldn't have to understand or be into politics to be a marginalised person. You should just be allowed to be a person. So yeah, I'm excited to see where some of these things go, but I will also now talk about the spoilery things. So if you're not ready to hear it, or if it hasn't come out in the show yet, because who knows, it might have done by now. But this was leaked recently. I may make... Editing me may pop in, but who knows. I'm very confused about this leak because it's, like I said, it's been 1 week. We have only seen the wedding and the honeymoon of this couple, but the Daily Mail posted that Nathaniel was coming up to Love Island star as he is seen for the first time since it was revealed his bride was Ella, and that she cheated with another groom. I haven't actually seen who she cheated with, so I am trying to avoid that, so I have at least some surprises. But this is an interview from The Sun with Nathaniel, or like, I don't know, a lot of these magazines just steal each other's quotes from one interview, and I'm not really sure who actually did the interview. But basically, Nathaniel and Ella had a huge fight, and like reoccurring fights on their honeymoon. And apparently a big part of this stemmed from the fact that Ella used to be a stripper, which I think is uncalled and unfair of Nathaniel, to be honest, especially as a queer man. Surely you understand that a lot of people in the UK who are queer or trans, marginalised generally, a lot of the time the only way to make money is... and also it's not like she's currently either. She says on the show she used to be a... she is not anymore. She has actually... it's, from what I can gather, it seems like she is full-time carer of her nan at the moment. She lives with her nan and cares for her full-time. The article says that Nathaniel claims bosses manipulated him into marrying Ella. Nathaniel came out against the show's bosses, claiming they manipulated him into marrying Ella Morgan. Nathaniel said he told MAFS producers he wanted to marry a man or a woman with a very masculine energy, but instead they matched him with a lovely girl who was transgender. He didn't want to at first, but producers encouraged him to think about it and told Nathaniel that if he didn't take part, it would ruin this girl's story. So for a start, that is manipulation. That is emotional manipulation from the producers or whoever it was at MAFS. In my opinion, that is emotional manipulation. That if he chose not to take part, then he would ruin her story. But also the fact that he wasn't necessarily sure he wanted to marry a trans woman is already ruining her story, to be honest. Either way, whatever the producers said or didn't say, either making him marry her or telling him that if he didn't marry her, he would ruin her story, both of those options is ruining her story because they were pairing her with someone who wasn't interested in her. Nathaniel pointed out the lack of welfare he had as well, how he learned things about Ella, such as having previously worked during their honeymoon. He says that was the kind of manipulation that went on. The story were like goblins whispering in people's ears. I'd be having a great conversation with Ella. She would be pulled away, and 5 minutes later, we'd have an argument about the exact same thing we were just talking about. After a steamy start, where the couple's chemistry sizzled, because their wedding was amazing, like, they really hit it off. They both seemed to be really immediately attracted and interested in each other. I would also like to point out as well, the type that Nathaniel described as a man or a woman with masculine energy, and the fact that the show paired him with a trans woman in itself is problematic. It's like, oh, of course, this woman who used to be a man, because that was the other thing that she used a lot, was like, oh, I was in the wrong body kind of narrative. The woman who used to be a man is obviously now a woman who has man energy. Question mark. So there's like innate issues with that kind of logic of he asked for this thing, so we gave him a trans woman. Fans watched on in horror as they got into furious bust-ups during their honeymoon. It was later reported that Ella had cheated on Nathaniel, who identifies as pansexual, with another groom in the series. A source told Mail Online that Ella's natural type is a straight man with masculine energy, so one of the other grooms ticked more of her boxes, which again, they were pairing up these two people who were not likely to actually be that interested in each other. Nathaniel's not particularly stereotypically masculine. He is quite a Like I said, my first instincts was I think he's attractive because he actually shows a lot of queer characteristics that I like to see in men in particular. So they were both looking for someone with masculine energy, and they were both paired with people who weren't necessarily super masculine or masculine in the ways that they meant. She didn't want to hurt Nathaniel or go against the process because being part of the show means so much to her. Ella was looking for love, and with the other groom, he adores her body and mind, and they had a much better chance of enjoying a long-lasting relationship together. So whoever this is obviously a straight man. They should have just paired her with a straight man and just been like really, really on it with monitoring or working out if people are transphobic and being more on it with welfare stuff, because there's more stuff about the welfare that Nathaniel basically just didn't even experience. And yeah, while on their honeymoon in Mexico, Ella revealed concerns that Nathaniel was not attracted to her. Nathaniel then turned on his new wife after she called him a prick and accused her of lying about her past, because we don't know if she did or did not disclose that in any of her interviews or application, but also I don't feel like she should have to. I feel like, you know, you shouldn't always have to bring up stuff that happened in your past just in case a partner might not like that particular thing. Because as well, for one, it is, if it's not something you are currently doing now, then it is not currently you. But also there is just still like a lot of stigma around ever having done or doing that I just find very confusing as an autistic person anyway. I don't understand how you can be a multi-gender attracted man and be somewhat more feminine, or like at least not stereotypically masculine, and have a problem with your partner having ever done. I just don't really get it. Nathaniel has come out against MAFS bosses and claimed that he was manipulated into marrying Ella. I told producers that I wanted to marry a man or a woman with very masculine energy because that's normally who I go for. Then I was told they matched me with a lovely girl who was transgender. My first reaction was no, because I felt that just wasn't me and I told them so. So I also have an issue with this. He said no because she was trans. As a self-identified pansexual who in the show says that it's not about the gender, it's not about somebody's body, it's about the personality, the connection they have and how they make him feel, I have an issue with that. I have an issue with that. And this is also why I say that, you know, labels mean what the users decide it means. I vary with the kinds of labels I use when it comes to my multi-gender attraction. I generally prefer to use bisexual or queer these days, but I have previously ID'd as pansexual myself. And this is a very good example of, he might say things like it's not the gender or the body, but he did not want to marry a trans woman. And he has said on the show he has never dated a trans person. Anyway, but they encouraged me to think about it, saying if I didn't take part, it would ruin this girl's story. So yeah, like back on that, they definitely, yeah, in my opinion, that is emotional manipulation. They should not have said that to him, especially if he said no just because she's trans, because they basically paired her with somebody who has, one, never dated trans people, and two, did not want to date her because she was trans. So they have set both of these people up for failure right away. They have set these people up to fail because they were just trying to tick their diversity boxes. And this is where that becomes the problem. Particularly in reality TV, a lot of reality TV shows have diversity boxes they tick, but then they do nothing to actually make sure those participants are safe. Like the reasons why I don't watch a lot of other shows, like oh my god, I can't remember any of their fucking names because I don't watch them, but the one where everybody's on the beach and everyone's supposed to be really hot. Like the amount of times I've either watched videos, kind of like this one basically, but by other people, about how these shows are racist and really anti-black in particular, and how a lot of these incredible black women, incredible black men never get a shot because it's literally because they are black, and they get reported on in such heinous ways, and it is all just certain people's biases and ignorance to the actual issues that could come up in recording these shows with marginalised people in them. So it makes me really angry that they were too lazy to do their due diligence to just pair Ella with a straight man and just make sure he wasn't fucking transphobic. Because she, like this article has said, she did find somebody who was interested in her in this show. It just wasn't her husband, somebody else's. If they had just done that, all of this would not have had to be set up and they wouldn't have had to been fucked around and fucked over. I also think it's kind of weird that, like, obviously I've not heard the other side of this story, but I find it weird that they are asking a cis person for their permission to be paired with a trans person and not the other way around. I do feel like Nathaniel was trapped into making a decision, because he does also say that he'd just passed on some contracted work because he thought he'd be on MAFS, and then this is what they provided him, was basically an ultimatum of either you're paired with this trans woman that you're not that interested in being paired with, or you are not on the show. I would also like to say here as well that I believe Nathaniel, because the things he's saying aren't exactly painting him in like the best light, to be honest. I think his aim was to make people feel bad for him in this experience, but he's also just really showing his arse quite a bit, in my personal opinion. So the Channel 4 like defense remarks that have come out as well since I filmed this, I don't believe them, because they obviously have a PR team to deal with this stuff, and it's not like this is new. Like, they have repeatedly had a lot of issues with certain contestants, like similar to this, with causing problems among contestants as well. Like, I believe Nathaniel. And then you've also ruined it for this girl too if you don't pair up, because neither of you will be on the show. And he said, and by that point I'd also turned down a work contract because I thought I'd be going on the show. So I agreed. My only deal breakers were that she didn't smoke and she didn't work in the industry. And then he says, that's why I was so angry when I learned before we went on the honeymoon that Ella worked as. When I asked to speak to my welfare person, I was told it wasn't a good time. So yeah, this is news to me. I didn't know they had welfare people. But also the fact that they have welfare people that don't do their jobs. Rage. I just feel so much rage. Another occasion, a producer told me I wouldn't be asked about my family. Then not long after, Ella asked me why she was being encouraged to ask me about my family. I mean, at least Ella's up front, you know? At least she was like, hey, why are they telling me to ask you about your family? That was the kind of manipulation that went on. The story were like goblins whispering in people's ears. I don't know who the stories supposedly are. I don't really understand that particular reference, but it's literally the story. One couple were really broken down by their manipulations. I watched a person have a full-on panic attack in my apartment. So like, obviously this has really affected other participants as well. He hasn't mentioned who specifically they were. So I'm interested to see how this season continues, to be honest. Nathaniel has claimed contestants were locked down in their rooms, as it was alleged that contributors took drugs during a day off. Speaking with The Mirror, he explained how staying in an apartment block in Wembley left him feeling claustrophobic and others had panic attacks. It was the most horrible thing at the time. We were all locked down in Wembley as there had been allegations 3 contributors had taken drugs. It was incredibly claustrophobic and people did struggle. Yeah, I am really annoyed, to be honest. I am obviously mainly directly annoyed with the producers and anybody involved in the creation of Married at First Sight UK this season. Also, I'm a little bit pissed at Nathaniel, I'm not gonna lie. Like, yeah, of course Ella shouldn't have cheated on him. Whoever it was that she cheated with, you know, also shouldn't have cheated on whoever he was paired with as well. But I just don't understand the whole I didn't want to be paired with a trans person, even though I'm vocally talking about being pansexual and what that means. I don't want to be paired with someone who's ever been in, because I'm judgmental. Is kind of the vibe I get from that. Yeah, and also just generally in their honeymoon, besides the actual like argument around her being in the past. He was also just really unfair about her personality. And I don't know whether that's because that did stem from the whole thing or not, but he was very unfair on Ella's, how he was perceiving her personality. He was perceiving her as fake and two-faced, and was one way when they were talking in private versus another way on camera, and I just did not perceive her that way. Like, again, obviously there's many layers to this, there's so much editing that's done, but I just genuinely think that she is just a little bit over the top and performative. Like, a lot of trans people I know have that side to them because it's kind of their protective barrier. She tried to have a conversation with him, explaining that she is acting like this because she's worried that he's not interested in her, so she feels like they're just kind of like going down the friend route, and this is how she acts with her friends. And that's what he wanted. He wanted to like get to know each other and be more friends first before anything else progressed. So this is what she's like with her friends. Like, you know, I don't like, it seemed like everything that she could have said or did say was just wrong. It didn't really matter. And yeah, I genuinely had to rewind their argument on the beach because I just did not understand what the fuck was happening. I had to rewind it with the context of he knew she was, to try and work out what he meant in that argument. And since I recorded this video, obviously Channel 4 are claiming that everything Nathaniel said is not true. Like I said earlier, I believe him because it doesn't exactly make him look great, the things he's saying either. But also, more importantly than any of that arguing back and forth, I saw in Pink News' article on this that Ella has decided to take a step back from social media, or at least she did at one point. She seems to be still active at the moment anyway, but she decided to take a step back from social media because of the transphobic abuse being directed at her and her family. And this is the thing that I was concerned about from the start, that even if she was absolutely perfect and did nothing wrong on the show, she would still receive a lot of vitriol and really awful online harassment regardless. So hopefully things calm down, things get managed and dealt with, and hopefully she's okay through all of this going on. Yeah, I don't think anyone should be sent direct hate just for being an imperfect human. But I feel like it's quite clear the reason why she's receiving this kind of backlash, so. Yeah, I had high hopes, and they have crushed and burned, to be honest. I am hopeful that some of the other couples are just going to be good, fun entertainment that I can enjoy. I am hopeful for Jay and Luke that they get on well and have successful MAFS time and post-MAFS time together. But yeah, the people that I was really excited about, 2/3 of them, Nathaniel and Ella, obviously have not gone very well, and they were just set up to fail by the production. So I am annoyed about this, and I feel like they are severely lacking in diversity. Training isn't great, it doesn't help, to be honest. They are severely lacking in hiring marginalised people behind the scenes, you know? Nobody knew how to handle a trans woman nor a pansexual black man. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say on that, so I will go now. Don't forget to leave a comment down below, let me know what you think. Obviously things may have changed since I recorded this anyway, more things might be out, more things may have happened. So yeah, just keep in mind that I recorded this literally after the first week of episodes aired. That was it. I haven't seen anything else. But yeah, your likes, comments, subscribes and sharing of my videos really helps support my channel. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to talk about or cover. Let me know if you'd like me to go maybe over MAFS UK stuff when it's all done, and sort of have a general chat about it. I just really felt compelled to talk about this stuff like sooner, because yeah, I had hoped for just generally a nice conversation about representation of marginalised communities that are not often represented, but then I got pissed off, got sorry pissed, sorry angry, absolute rager, that's my video for this week, and I will see you next week. Bye.